Okay, we are going to start what is called completing the square, which will lead us into our next method for solving quadratic equations. So what is completing the square? Well, you can look at the steps here, which tells you what to do, but let me just go through the concept in pictures. So for example, if you've done algebra tiles, you've probably seen tiles like this. So you have three types of tiles, basically a single unit, so the area of this is 1 because each side length is 1. Then with the red one, it's x because the longer side is a length of x, and this is 1. And the light blue is x squared because each side is x. So the number inside, or the x squared, just represents the area. So what does completing the square mean? Well, consider this. What if we need to complete the square for x squared plus 4x. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to basically draw this out using these tiles, and you can see what I mean by let's complete the square. So I might have 1x squared, so I'm going to draw one big x squared box. And then I have 4x's, and what I want to do, remember the whole idea is using a square, I want to put 4 of these red tiles around to try to make a square. So what I might do is I might say, okay, let's put one here. So that's an x. But I want to kind of balance it out because I want to make it a square. So here's another x. And then I might just keep going. There's 3x. And there's 4x. But you can see there's a gap missing, right? It's not quite a square. So what do we need to add here? Well, I can put in these grid lines 1, 2, 3, because these small sides of the red x blocks are 1. So we're going to add 4. So basically what we're thinking about with completing the square is what are we adding here, right? What are the ones we're adding to finish off the square? And then how do we figure that out without having to draw the tiles is what the steps say here. We're going to find 1/2 of b, and then we are going to square it. So that's where this b over 2 squared comes from. Okay, so if you think about this, we added 4. Why? Because if you think about this, b equals 4. So b over 2 squared is 4 over 2 squared, which is 2 squared, which is, again, 4. So this is the algebraic way of figuring that out. And then what's cool about that is to factor it, it's super easy. It's just going to be x plus whatever b over 2 is to the second power. And we'll look at that later. So today our focus is just on what do you do to complete the square. Okay? So if you look at the example below, again, if you want to, you can feel free to draw out the blocks and try to add them all up. It definitely works very well when b is even. Not so much when b is odd. But if you take a look at this, all you have to do is recognize what is b. If it's not in standard form, make sure it is in standard form so you see b is in front of the x. So in this example A, b is 18. So what I want to do is complete the square. So what am I going to do to complete the square? I'm going to take b divided by 2, square it, and add it on to the end of that expression. So I'm going to take 18 divided by 2 and square that to get 9 squared, which is 81. So to complete the square, I do x squared plus 18x, and then I'm going to add this 81 on. So that's what I did to complete the square. Okay? And then the shortcut for factoring was simply take x and add on whatever b over 2 was. So b over 2 happens to be 18 over 2, which is 9. So that's the shortcut for the factoring. Okay? Same thing for b, just with an odd b value, you're going to end up with fractions, but that's okay. So in this case, we have b equals -17. Take the sign in front of b with it. All right, then we're going to do two things. We're going to find b over 2, then over 2, which I would recommend you leave as a fraction, so don't worry about making that a decimal. And then we're going to square that to get oops, let me put the square there, 289 over top square of the bottom. Okay, that 289 over 4 is what I want to add on to the original expression to complete that square. So x squared minus 17x, I'm going to add on. And then factoring, again, instead of doing all the puzzle and GCFs and all that, we can do the shortcut and say, well, this is just going to be x then plus whatever b over 2 was. So b over, oops, sorry about that, b over 2 once again is what's in the parentheses, right? That's b over 2. That was b over 2 in part A. So we're going to take that negative 17 over 2 and square it. And we can just simplify that plus negative into x minus 7 over 2 squared. Okay? So two parts to it again, getting that b over 2 squared to add on, and then how to factor. Factoring is going to be actually really important, and we're going to see that when we do the work in class after this. So go ahead and try 1, 2, and 3 for me, then we're going to come back and check our answers. All right, go ahead and check and see if your work matches mine. So again, we want to see that final perfects at the end, the factored form, but also what's important is what did you add to create that square. Okay, so that's it. We'll continue in class. Thanks for listening.